Oh my God, this was really, really cool. It is July 5th. It's 4:39 p.m. in the afternoon. This is me reporting on an experience that I just had not more than about 25 minutes ago. I'm so glad that I had this kind of experience. It was a fun experience. I haven't had like a legit beyond body experience for a little while. I've been dealing with other types of experiences. So here I am to report the beyond body to you. Very quickly, for those of you who don't know what the beyond body is, this is something that I began experiencing after my horrible accident that I had 5 or 6 years ago. And it is an experience where I do not feel separation from my body. I do not feel as if my spirit being separates from my body. Instead, I feel my entire body in movement, in motion. Yeah, I might be catapulting through space. I might be moving left, moving right, going in different directions. It just really depends. But what ends up happening is I end up in a parallel universe, a parallel reality. But again, there is no feeling of separation, and that is what the difference between beyond body and astral projection is. This was classic beyond body. I was lying down in bed. Now, the other thing I want to tell you guys is that this was very much something where I had formed the intent and I did want to have an experience. I also talked to you guys a lot about the fact that there are times when this happens just out of nowhere. It'll happen by surprise. I won't necessarily be planning it, but this was something that I planned. I always feel a bit of pride, even after all these years of doing this. I feel a bit of pride when I actually set out to do it and I'm able to do it, because that is not always the case. And it is something I always want to emphasize to those of you who are trying to leave your body, that someone with 40 plus years of doing this still struggles at times to be able to get an experience. I still fall asleep just like you do. I still get frustrated just like you do. So I hope in some sense that this inspires you to continue if you feel like you just want to give up sometimes. So anyway, I was lying down, and by the way, I want to be upfront and tell you that I did not have storm sounds on this time. I'd had storm sounds on a little earlier when I was lying down and I was napping, but I decided not to turn anything on. I decided just to do this in silence. And this, by the way, is an option that you have if you want to do it that way as well. People have different recommendations of different things to have in the background, to have certain types of music, binaural beats. I always talk about storm sounds, but there are other types of things. I really, truly recommend that you keep your mind open about this. Do what works for you. I would listen to a bunch of different types of things that people do. I'd get on Reddit and go on these different things, and perhaps take some things that I do. I would listen to that. I would try it, and then I would use whatever works. If it works for you, that's wonderful, but find something specifically that works for you. For me, this afternoon, it was silence. Complete silence. And in my mind, again, I'd formed the intent. I wasn't really focused per se on an image. Earlier today, I had pictured my third eye glowing with that golden glow that I've talked about before in previous videos, where my third eye lights up. But in this moment, when I was lying down, there wasn't that. There was just the intent to do it and quieting my thoughts. I kept it very simple. So I would say it was within 15, maybe 20 minutes that I felt the feeling, that I felt that sense of being in the middle, that middle space between being asleep and being awake. And I knew, kind of excitedly, I knew that yes, I was here. I was at the point I could actually go beyond body. I then felt my entire body turning to the left and coming off the bed. And as always, guys, I always have that feeling, regardless, I think, that I am going to hit the floor or I am going to hit the table that's right near my bed. I always feel like my head's gonna hit this, or my body's gonna hit the ground, and it is gonna hurt, but it never does. When I came down, there really was no motion. I didn't go into any kind of motion. I just got up immediately. My thought is that because of this, whatever world that I entered this afternoon was very close to our own. So I stood up in darkness after coming off the bed, and I began to walk. And gradually, the darkness lifted. I do believe, as I was looking around, that I was in some version of the place that I live in. It seemed more to be a house to me than an apartment, because I presently live in an apartment. And as I was looking around, I thought to myself, have I actually traveled? It's one of the things that I think to myself, have I actually gone somewhere? The first thing I noticed was this place, wherever this place was, had several more lights than my place does. There were lights everywhere here. I noticed that on the ceiling there was a chandelier, there were lights there were lights in the living room, there were a lot of lights, lamps, things like that. So that was one of the differences between this place and my place. The other thing was there were pictures and things hanging on the wall that I did not recognize, but I did not take the time to actually take in and absorb those pictures, by the way, guys, because I looked to my right at this point, and there was a big bay window, and I could see outside, and I was like, okay, there's an outside. For some reason, I have this, I don't know, obsession with getting outside. I love getting outside. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to go outside and I want to do some exploration. I believe now, thinking about it, that when I looked out there, things were a little foggy. It looked like it could be a bit cooler. And when I had finally gotten to the door, opened the door, and came outside, I was in a neighborhood. And the first thing I noticed was that I believe things were cooler. I was in a place that was cooler, so I could feel the temperature. For those of you who are interested, some of you ask, can I feel certain things when I'm in these realities, in these worlds? I could feel the coolness. I could feel that it was definitely more cool than it is here in Southern California, where it has been boiling. This place was definitely cooler. The neighborhood did not stick out to me, at least in that moment. There were houses. This seemed to be something. I usually know if something sticks out because it'll really, really come into my memory. It'll stay in my memory if something sticks out about a neighborhood. But this was your normal average neighborhood. It didn't look like it stuck out to me at all. So I began walking down a sidewalk, and the first thing I noticed, or the first thing that happened, and I kind of sighed about this. I was like, oh no, here we go. A dog. I've had issues with dogs before and in other realities. And this dog began to bark at me immediately. And I was like, okay. The dog was small. It was brown. It had brown hair. I apologize, guys. I don't know breeds of dogs. This looked like maybe the average dog to me. Again, nothing stuck out. It was brown. Maybe it had long, flappy ears, but I'm not 100% sure. But it was a tiny dog. It was small. It was a small dog, and it was barking at me. And I was thinking to myself, the dog, at least from what I could see, didn't have necessarily have a leash, and I think it was roaming free. And the dog came at me, and once it came at me after barking and barking and barking, I at one point I think it jumped up towards me, and then I pushed it back onto the sidewalk. Not violently, guys, by the way. I'm sure that there are people that are listening to this that love dogs. I did not violently try to throw the dog back on. I was just putting the dog back onto the sidewalk and kind of backing off. I just want to make sure I didn't want to get bitten or anything. I must admit I was a bit concerned. But again, I did not hurt the dog. I just kind of pushed the dog back. I didn't push the dog back hard at all. And once I had pushed the dog back to the sidewalk, something interesting, very strange as my experiences tend to be. My experiences are so strange. Once I touched the dog, I could hear the dog's thoughts, or I could talk to the dog. It was really interesting. And once that happened, I not exactly sure, but I do believe one of the first things I said was, my gosh, you can talk. I can talk to you. You can talk to me. We were kind of going back and forth. I didn't sense or feel that there was an anger there anymore. And again, this was after I had put the dog back on the sidewalk. It was, as I say, kind of a back and forth thing. And more of a thing of, I'm surprised that you're a dog and you can talk and I'm communicating with you, and this is very, very interesting. But again, the anger seemed to have subsided, and a young boy, blonde hair, couldn't have been more than 10, maybe 11 years old, came out with the dog. I don't believe that the boy put a leash around the dog at all. But once the boy had come out, I tried to get the boy's attention. I do remember this. I was waving at the boy. Hey, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Hi, how are you? And the boy did not react to me, did not see me. Very interesting. This does happen even in the beyond body, in these physical universes. There are beings that cannot see me when I am out there, and the dog could still see me, could still recognize me. And at that point, when I realized that I couldn't get the boy's attention, I went back to the dog and I said, hey, I just need to know this. What world is this? What world is this? Now, the first time I said this, the dog's like, well, I don't know. I don't know what world it is. I don't know why would I suspect that a dog would know? I'm not sure. On this world, I don't know that a dog would know what this world was called, but I was in another reality. So I figured, hey, I'll ask the dog what world this was. And it was funny because after the dog had said that, I was like, no, I know you know what world. This was becoming sort of a sort of comical exchange between the dog and I. We were kind of going back and forth with each other, like I know you know what world this is. You just don't want to tell me the world that I'm in right now. And it was more of a playful kind of a fighting more than anything else. I kind of realized that the dog really wasn't angry at me. I think it was more playful. So we kept going back and forth with this thing of, I know what the dog, what this world is. The dog was like, I don't know what the world is. And then finally the dog said, well, look, the world is called, and there was this pregnant pause. There was this pause after the dog said, the world is called. And I was just like, okay, look, I'm thinking to myself, I could go back at any moment. I know how this works. I could be pulled back to the 3D at any moment. And I'm like, okay, this dog's taking its time. And the dog finally says, the world is called Fralian. Fralian. And I'm like, Fralian? Now, I didn't believe the dog. For all I know, this is what the world is called. I have no idea. Maybe this is what the world is called. I'm just bringing the name back to you. When the dog said Fralian, I thought to myself, the dog's got to be giving me a hard time. But that is what the dog told me. The dog said the world is called Fralian. And I remember as I was coming back to the 3D, and I was fading coming back to the 3D, I said, yeah, right, Fralian. But I was laughing at the same time. So I don't know if the dog was kidding with me or not with a word like Fralian, but that's the name of the world that I was in briefly, Fralian. And that's my experience. Thank you so much for coming on another journey with me. And until next time, take care.